The morning started like any other in a small, cozy apartment on the edge of the city. Sunlight streamed through the half-open curtains, casting long shadows across the living room. The smell of fresh toast and coffee filled the air. In the kitchen, a man in his early 40s moved quickly but carefully, juggling his briefcase, a cup of coffee, and trying not to spill anything on his shirt. He had the kind of routine that was almost automatic, shaped by years of early mornings, long hours, and the constant responsibility of raising his twin daughters alone. The twins, small but full of life, were already awake, chattering and laughing over breakfast. They were 10 years old, the kind of age where curiosity meets energy, and they had a special bond not just with each other, but with their dad. Their eyes would light up every time he entered the room, a small smile breaking across their faces. They were aware, more than most kids their age, of how much he worked and how hard he tried to balance everything. They had watched him rush out in the mornings, tired but determined, and come home in the evenings, still carrying the weight of work and responsibilities. This particular morning felt different to him. There was an unusual tightness in his chest, a mix of anticipation and exhaustion. His company had recently taken on a huge project, and deadlines loomed like dark clouds. Emails, meetings, presentations, and phone calls filled his day, leaving little time for anything else. Even so, he made it a point to have breakfast with the girls, knowing that these moments were precious. As he poured cereal into their bowls, he glanced at their little notebooks lying on the table, filled with doodles and notes about school, their favorite cartoons, and sometimes questions for him about work. It was their way of connecting, even if he didn't always have the time to answer everything in detail. After breakfast, he helped them with small tasks like tying their shoelaces or brushing their hair, and listened to their stories about school. They told him about a science project, a funny incident with a friend, and a story about a stray cat that had been hanging around the park. His tired eyes softened as he listened. Despite the busy life he led, these were the moments he cherished most. The girls noticed their dad's weariness. They saw how he tried to smile but sometimes failed to hide the stress. One of them tugged gently at his sleeve and asked, "Dad, are you going to be okay today at work?" He knelt down to her level, holding both their hands in his. "I will, sweetheart," he said, trying to keep his voice light and reassuring. "It's a busy day, but I'll manage, and I'll be back before you know it." After a quick round of hugs, he kissed their foreheads and grabbed his briefcase. The apartment door closed behind him, leaving the twins staring after him, a mixture of concern and admiration in their eyes. They knew he worked hard, and they respected that, but they also wished there was a way they could help him make things a little easier. Little did they know they were already hatching a plan. At the office, the Father's Day started with the usual rush. He walked through the glass doors, nodding to colleagues, exchanging quick greetings, and diving into the thick of work. Meetings piled up, emails demanded immediate attention, and phone calls came in back to back. He moved from one task to another, his mind constantly calculating, prioritizing, and problem-solving. He was respected for his efficiency and dedication, often seen as the person who could handle anything thrown his way. Yet behind the professional exterior, he carried the quiet stress of a single parent who always had to think about home too. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, the twins were busy in their room. They whispered to each other, plotting a surprise for their dad. They had noticed how much he worried about managing everything, and they wanted to do something special. The idea was simple but ambitious. They wanted to take his place in a small way, to mimic his office routine at home. It started with drawing little charts and reports, pretending to schedule meetings and setting up desks with their school supplies arranged like office files. They even dressed in shirts and ties, trying to look like their dad. Their laughter filled the room as they practiced, correcting each other and adding funny touches like making one of their stuffed animals the CEO, who gave them instructions. The day went on. At the office, the father faced challenges that required his attention. A project report had errors, a team member was struggling with a task, and a last-minute client call changed the schedule. He navigated everything with his usual skill, but he felt a constant tug of worry for his daughters. He checked his phone occasionally, seeing small messages they had sent, a drawing, a funny sticker, a short note saying, "We miss you, Dad." Each one made him smile, even if it was just for a moment, and reminded him why he worked so hard. As the afternoon sun streamed through the office windows, The twins continued with their preparations. They rehearsed presentations on the living room floor, marking charts with crayons and stapling papers together. One of them took on the role of writing minutes for the meeting. Another acted as the team manager. They made small signs, one reading "Dad's desk," another saying "important tasks," and lined them up neatly. Their small hands moved with focus and determination, and every so often they exchanged proud glances at how professional it all looked. By evening, the father wrapped up his work, exhausted but feeling accomplished. As he left the office, his mind raced with thoughts about the project, the emails he still had to send, and the meetings he would attend tomorrow. But underneath all that, there was a feeling of anticipation, a subtle hope that coming home would bring relief, joy, and the comfort of his daughter's company. He could not have guessed, though, the surprise that awaited him. The apartment smelled of freshly baked cookies, something the twins had secretly made during the afternoon. The living room was arranged in a way that mimicked his office, with little desks, chairs, and neatly organized files that were actually their homework and drawings. The girls hid behind one of the desks, whispering and giggling, as they prepared to greet him in a way he would never forget. When he opened the door, the sight that met him was both shocking and heartwarming. His daughters, dressed like tiny versions of himself, were standing at the desks ready to take on the workday. Their serious expressions, mixed with the innocence of their age, made him pause. He set down his briefcase slowly, his heart swelling with pride and amusement. He could not stop the laughter from escaping his lips as he looked at their tiny charts, the reports they had made, and the little sticky notes that had his name on them. The twins' eyes sparkled with excitement and anticipation. They had been practicing this moment, imagining his reaction, hoping he would feel proud, and now, seeing him laugh and shake his head in disbelief, they knew they had succeeded. The father knelt down, opening his arms for them, feeling a wave of emotion he hadn't expected. It was not just the surprise, it was the love, effort, and thoughtfulness behind it. He hugged them tightly, holding them close, and said in a voice that trembled with emotion, "You two, this means more to me than anything today." For a few moments, the busy world, the deadlines, the stress of work, all of it, faded away. All that remained was the warmth of home, the laughter of his daughters, and the pride he felt in the little hearts that wanted to share his burdens, even if only in play. The apartment was filled with joy, innocent laughter, and the kind of happiness that comes from love and family. It was a small, simple moment, yet it carried weight. It reminded him why he worked so hard, why he tried to be patient, and why every tired morning and long day was worth it. His daughters had given him something that no promotion, bonus, or recognition at work could ever match. The feeling that they understood him, appreciated him, and loved him deeply. And as they settled into their little office roles, talking, pretending, and giggling, he watched with a full heart. The day had been long and exhausting, but in that moment everything felt complete. He realized that while he worked to provide for them, they, in their small way, had given back to him something far more valuable. The twin girls had taken their dad's place not in work but in spirit, and the joy of seeing that effort unfold in front of him was a memory he would treasure forever. After the laughter and hugs of the previous evening, the twin girls could hardly sleep. Their minds buzzed with excitement and ideas. They had experienced the joy of seeing their dad so surprised and proud, and now they wanted to do something even bigger. They whispered to each other in the dim light of their bedroom, giggling and plotting. This time they wanted to take the gesture further, not just at home, but somehow connected to their dad's real work. The next morning started early, as usual, but the twins were already awake before the sun. They tiptoed around the apartment, careful not to wake their dad. They gathered crayons, colored papers, markers, and notebooks, laying them out neatly on the small desk in the living room. They had decided to create their own office day, with schedules, charts, and even little tasks to manage. They drew charts that looked like sales graphs, lists that resembled to-do lists, and little sticky notes with their dad's name on them. They wanted it to look authentic, funny, but also heartwarming. Their imaginations ran wild. One of the girls assigned herself the role of team leader, the other the role of operations manager. They practiced their lines, calling imaginary staff to meetings, giving instructions, and taking notes. Stuffed animals became employees, their cat became a supervisor, and a teddy bear even played the part of a demanding client. Their creativity was boundless, and their laughter echoed in the room as they corrected each other, pretending to argue about office matters. It was serious work, but filled with fun and love. At breakfast, their dad walked in, rubbing his eyes and still half asleep. The twins greeted him with huge smiles and a playful salute, wearing tiny ties they had made themselves. He chuckled, instantly feeling lighter after the heavy workload from the previous day. They explained their new plan in excited voices, jumping and gesturing with enthusiasm. They wanted to show him how much they cared and how much they appreciated his hard work. He listened, feeling a mix of amusement and pride, knowing that their efforts came from the purest of hearts. Once he left for work, the twins got to work immediately. They arranged the living room again, this time even more elaborate than before. Papers were stacked in neat piles, chairs were arranged like a meeting room, and one corner had a coffee station complete with plastic cups and a small kettle. They wrote out their schedules: 9 a.m. team briefing, 10 a.m. project review, 11 a.m. client follow-up, all imaginary, of course, but they played it with utmost seriousness. As the morning passed, they practiced meetings. They took turns speaking, imitating the way their dad usually sounded during office calls. Sometimes they giggled uncontrollably at their own impressions, but then quickly composed themselves, wanting it to feel authentic. They even created a small report on the chores they had done: laundry sorted, dishes washed, and floor swept. It was their version of performance evaluation, a playful nod to their dad's professional life. By noon, they had created a miniature office environment that looked remarkably organized. Their stuffed animals sat neatly on chairs, some employees pretending to type on tiny keyboards. They took the work seriously, discussing imaginary deadlines and how to solve made-up problems. Even their cat, who wandered in occasionally, seemed to sense the excitement, walking carefully among the desks as if respecting their authority. Meanwhile, at the real office, their dad's day was as busy as ever. Meetings continued back-to-back, emails demanded immediate responses, and unexpected issues arose. Yet there was a subtle difference in his mind that day. Messages from the twins arrived periodically, sketches, little notes, and tiny reminders that they missed him and believed in him. Each one brought a smile, a momentary pause in the chaos, and reminded him of the joy waiting at home. The twins decided to take their creativity a step further. They made tiny award certificates for themselves and the stuffed animals, celebrating accomplishments like best team player, creative problem solver, and outstanding communication. They practiced handing them out ceremoniously, bowing and shaking hands with invisible recipients. Their giggles could not be contained, but they quickly reminded themselves to act serious, determined to make the office scenario convincing. By mid-afternoon, they were exhausted but exhilarated. They paused to admire their handiwork, looking around the living room transformed into a miniature office. Every detail mattered to them: the charts, the schedules, the reports, and the tiny awards lined neatly on the table. They were proud, knowing they had worked hard to replicate something so significant in their dad's life, all out of love. As evening approached, they prepared for the grand finale. They rehearsed a final presentation, where they would summarize their accomplishments and demonstrate how well they had managed the office. They wanted their dad to feel the same sense of pride and surprise as he had the day before, but this time on an even bigger scale. They even practiced little speeches, each taking turns, speaking clearly and confidently, imagining their dad clapping in admiration. When he returned home that evening, the scene was extraordinary. The living room was transformed, more elaborate than before. The twins were standing proudly behind their desks, holding charts and reports ready to present. Stuffed animals lined the chairs, papers stacked neatly, and tiny award certificates were displayed prominently. The air was filled with excitement and anticipation. The dad's eyes widened as he stepped inside, taking in the scene. He could hardly believe the effort and creativity his daughters had poured into their little office. He set down his briefcase, feeling his chest tighten with emotion. He watched as they spoke with confidence, presenting their achievements and explaining how they had managed the day. Every gesture, every line, every detail reflected not just play, but thoughtfulness and understanding of his hard work. He knelt down to their level, struggling to hold back tears of pride. "You two have really outdone yourselves," he said, his voice trembling slightly. I can't believe how much thought and effort you put into this. I'm so proud of you both. The twins beamed, their eyes shining with happiness. They had wanted to make him feel proud, and seeing him so moved made every moment worth it. They went through the mini presentations together, laughing at funny parts and sharing serious moments. He asked questions, encouraged them to explain more, and applauded their creativity. The stuffed animals received award certificates ceremoniously, and the charts were reviewed with playful seriousness. The apartment echoed with laughter, love, and the warmth of family, turning the ordinary space into a scene of pure joy. As the night settled in, they cleaned up together, sharing stories about their day and the little adventures they had imagined. The father realized that even though he worked hard to provide for them, his daughters were teaching him a lesson in love, empathy, and creativity. Their desire to take his place, even playfully, showed a depth of understanding that touched his heart profoundly. He tucked them into bed later, kissing their foreheads, feeling a sense of fulfillment he hadn't known he could feel in such a hectic world. "You two are amazing," he whispered, holding them close. "Not just for today, but for always." They snuggled close, drifting to sleep with smiles on their faces, proud of the joy they had created and the love they had shared. In those quiet moments, the father reflected on how much these little gestures meant. It wasn't about perfection or work. It was about connection, understanding, and family. The twin girls had taken a small piece of his world and made it their own, showing him in a way words could not describe just how much they cared. The bond they shared had deepened, and the memory of their playful office day would remain with him forever, a testament to love, creativity, and the power of thoughtful gestures. The following day, the twin girls woke up with renewed excitement. After the success of their little office recreation, they felt ready to take their playful experiment to the next level. They wanted to surprise their dad in a way that showed not only their creativity, but also their understanding of how much he juggled every day. They believed that if they could mimic his workday even more realistically, it would bring him joy and pride, and perhaps ease a bit of the stress he carried with him from the office. They started early, tiptoeing through the apartment to collect materials. Crayons, colored papers, notebooks, sticky notes, and even their dad's old pens were spread across the living room. They organized their tiny workspace meticulously, arranging chairs and desks, lining up the stuffed animals as their employees, and making small name tags for each of them. Their attention to detail was impressive. Each chart they drew represented an imaginary project. Every report was written with care, and even small tasks like email follow-ups or team briefings were assigned to different stuffed animals. The girls took turns rehearsing meetings. They imitated the way their dad talked during calls, the way he walked across the office, and even his gestures when explaining something important. They laughed at their own impersonations but quickly composed themselves, wanting to keep the act as authentic as possible. Their determination was remarkable. It was more than just play. It was an expression of their love and admiration for their dad. Meanwhile, the father's day at the office was unusually hectic. A last-minute client demanded a presentation, a team member was struggling with a task, and several emails required immediate attention. He navigated the chaos with skill, but the weight of responsibility was heavier than usual. He couldn't stop thinking about the twins and their playful surprises. Small messages popped up on his phone with doodles, notes, and stickers from the girls. Each one brought a smile to his face and a brief respite from the stress that seemed to follow him through every meeting and task. Back at home, the twins created a miniature office scenario that rivaled the real one. They even made a little schedule for the day, complete with time slots for meetings, project updates, and breaks. One of the twins took on the role of the team leader, while the other managed operations. They called imaginary staff to meetings, discussed solutions for invented problems, and kept meticulous notes. Every action, every gesture was thoughtful and deliberate. They even went a step further and created an award ceremony for the stuffed animals, celebrating their imaginary achievements with certificates and applause. The girls practiced handing out the awards with ceremony, bowing and shaking hands as if it were a real office event. Their laughter filled the room, a mixture of excitement, pride, and joy. Each moment reflected their innocence and their deep desire to make their dad feel appreciated. As the afternoon sun lit up the apartment, the twins took a break to admire their work. The living room looked like a miniature replica of their dad's office. Charts and reports were neatly arranged, Chairs were perfectly aligned and sticky notes labeled every task. Even the stuffed animals looked serious in their little roles, as if they understood the importance of the day. The girls smiled at each other, proud of what they had created. They were not just playing. They were showing love, understanding, and appreciation for the man who worked tirelessly to provide for them. When the father returned home that evening, he was unaware of the elaborate scene awaiting him. The apartment was filled with the aroma of cookies the girls had baked during the day, the air buzzing with excitement. As he opened the door, he froze. The living room had transformed into a lively miniature office. The twins stood proudly behind their desks, holding charts and reports ready to present their accomplishments. Stuffed animals were seated in organized rows, some typing on tiny keyboards, others taking notes diligently. Small certificates were displayed on a side table, ready for distribution. His eyes widened in surprise and delight. He could hardly believe the amount of effort his daughters had put into this. Their tiny versions of his office life, complete with meetings, reports, and awards, were astonishing. He set down his briefcase and knelt to their level, a wide smile breaking across his face. "You two, this is incredible," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't believe how much work and creativity you put into this. I'm so proud of you both." The twins beamed with happiness, their eyes sparkling with excitement. They began their presentation, walking him through the day as if he were the most important visitor in their office. They explained their tasks, reported on the accomplishments of their team members, and even included a brief review of the chores they had completed. Their dad listened intently, asking questions, praising their creativity, and laughing at the funny parts. The room was filled with joy, love, and admiration. He watched as they handed out certificates to the stuffed animals, bowing and clapping as they did so. The way they carried themselves with seriousness mixed with playfulness was endearing. It was not just a game. It was an expression of their love and understanding. He realized that while he worked to provide for them, they were teaching him about empathy, creativity, and the importance of cherishing small moments. As the evening progressed, they continued their playful activities, organizing files, discussing imaginary projects, and managing their tiny team. The father participated, asking questions, offering advice, and laughing at their impersonations. The apartment was filled with warmth, the kind of warmth that comes from genuine connection and love. Every moment was precious, every smile and laugh adding to the memory they were creating together. Eventually, they gathered around for a final team meeting, summarizing the accomplishments of the day. They discussed their successes, challenges, and the solutions they had come up with. The father applauded their effort, feeling a deep sense of pride and joy. He realized that these small, thoughtful gestures were more meaningful than any recognition he could receive at work. The twin girls had not only taken his place in play, but had also shown him the depth of their understanding and care. After cleaning up, they settled down for a quiet evening, sharing stories and reflecting on the day. The father felt a profound sense of fulfillment, realizing that his daughter's love and creativity were gifts he could cherish forever. He tucked them into bed, holding them close and whispering words of praise and affection. "You two are amazing," he said softly. "Not just today, but always." The girls snuggled close, drifting off to sleep with smiles on their faces, proud of what they had created and the joy they had shared. In the quiet of the night, the father reflected on the lesson his daughters had taught him. It wasn't about work, deadlines, or achievements. It was about connection, understanding, and love. The twin girls had taken a small piece of his world and made it their own, showing him in a simple yet powerful way how much they cared. The memory of this playful, heartfelt office day would remain with him forever, a reminder of the beauty of family, the strength of love, and the joy that comes from thoughtful gestures and shared moments. The morning after their last playful office day, the twin girls woke up with renewed excitement and determination. They could hardly contain themselves as they whispered to each other in the dim light of their bedroom. They wanted to take their gesture even further, and this time, they had a daring idea. What if they could visit their dad's actual office? They imagined the surprise and joy it would bring him. Seeing them in his workplace, showing their creativity and affection, they thought it would be the ultimate way to show their appreciation for everything he did for them. After breakfast, they approached their dad with cautious excitement. He was still half awake, coffee in hand, but attentive as the twins eagerly explained their plan. They told him they had an idea to make him proud and wanted to bring a piece of home to his office. The father paused, a mixture of surprise, amusement, and slight worry crossing his face. But looking into their eager eyes, he knew this was not just a fleeting whim. It was their way of showing love. He agreed, with a promise to help them do it safely and appropriately. Once preparations were complete, they arrived at the office, small hands tightly held by their dad. As they stepped into the building, the twins looked around in awe. The lobby, the elevators, and the bustling employees fascinated them. They whispered to each other, pointing out familiar items their dad had mentioned at home: conference rooms, the break area, and the main office floor where he spent most of his day. Their dad smiled, proud to see them so curious and respectful. When they entered the main office area, employees looked up from their desks in surprise and delight. The twins were dressed neatly, ready to present their playful interpretation of their dad's workday. The father guided them gently, explaining to colleagues that this was a special, thoughtful gesture from his daughters. Laughter and smiles spread across the office, as everyone was touched by the innocence, creativity, and thoughtfulness of the girls. They had brought a sense of joy that was impossible to ignore. The girls began their presentation, mimicking their dad's professional mannerisms. They pointed to charts they had created, explained imaginary project updates, and shared little reports on the team's progress. Their tiny voices, full of confidence and enthusiasm, echoed through the office, captivating everyone around. Colleagues applauded, some taking out phones to capture the moment, and others exchanged amused glances, impressed by the effort and creativity of the young girls. Their seriousness, combined with their obvious joy, made the presentation both entertaining and heartwarming. At the far end of the office, the CEO noticed the gathering and approached curiously. When he saw the twins standing proudly behind their makeshift desks, presenting with such focus and charm, he couldn't help but smile. He observed quietly, watching the father's reactions as well. The father's eyes sparkled with pride and affection, clearly touched by the creativity and effort of his daughters. He watched them closely, nodding, encouraging them, and laughing at the funny parts. The CEO could see the bond between them. The way the father's respect and admiration for his children was evident in every gesture. The twins moved through their presentation methodically, each taking turns explaining tasks, reporting progress, and interacting with the team of stuffed animals they had brought along. They even created a little award ceremony for their imaginary team, handing out certificates and congratulating their plush coworkers. Employees around the office were charmed, some chuckling at the playful ceremony, others moved by the thoughtfulness of the gesture. The father watched, overwhelmed with pride, realizing that his daughters were not only showing creativity but also empathy, understanding, and a sense of responsibility. The CEO finally approached and knelt down to the twins' level. He asked them questions about their presentation, encouraged them to explain their charts, and listened attentively. The girls responded confidently, sharing their ideas and proudly explaining every detail. The CEO was genuinely impressed by their maturity and thoughtfulness, recognizing that these qualities reflected their upbringing and the care their father had invested in them. It was a moment that bridged generations, mixing innocence with genuine understanding, and it left a lasting impression on everyone present. After the presentation, the father and the twins walked through the office, showing them spaces where he worked, explaining how he managed tasks, and introducing them to colleagues. The girls asked thoughtful questions, listened carefully, and expressed curiosity about how things were done. Their dad answered patiently, guiding them and adding small anecdotes about funny or interesting moments at work. Employees smiled, charmed by the combination of innocence, curiosity, and admiration that the twins brought into the professional space. The office felt lighter, warmer, and more connected because of their visit. At the end of the day, the CEO gathered everyone for a small impromptu meeting. He praised the father for raising such thoughtful and creative children, noting how proud he must be of them. The twins beamed, their small faces glowing with happiness, feeling valued and appreciated. They received applause and small tokens of appreciation from colleagues, a gesture that highlighted the impact their thoughtfulness had created. The father's heart swelled with pride, seeing his daughters recognized and admired, not for perfection or achievement, but for their love, creativity, and effort. After leaving the office, the twins chattered excitedly about the day, They shared stories about the people they met, the offices they explored, and the funny reactions of the employees. Their father listened, smiling and laughing, grateful for the joy and pride they had brought to his workplace. He reflected on how meaningful it was that his children understood and appreciated the effort he put into his job, and how their playful imitation had brought a sense of warmth and connection to his office. Back at home, the family settled in for a quiet evening. They shared a simple dinner, talking and laughing about the day's events. The father felt a deep sense of fulfillment, realizing that the lessons his daughters were learning were mutual. He had taught them love, responsibility, and creativity, and they had shown him the beauty of thoughtful gestures, empathy, and family connection. The day had been extraordinary, not because of work achievements or office success, but because of the bond, understanding, and joy that they had all shared together. As bedtime approached, he tucked the twins into bed, holding them close and whispering words of affection. "I'm so proud of both of you," he said softly. "Not just for today, but for always." The girls snuggled close, drifting off to sleep with smiles on their faces, proud of the love they had shown and the happiness they had brought to their father's world. In those quiet moments, the father reflected on the lessons learned from the day. It wasn't about work or recognition. It was about connection, love, and the joy of sharing meaningful experiences. The twin girls had not only taken their dad's place in playful imitation, but they had also brought heartwarming moments to his office, reminding everyone that even small gestures can create lasting impact. The memory of this day would stay with him forever, a symbol of love, family, and the happiness that comes from thoughtful, heartfelt actions. The next morning, the father woke up with a quiet sense of anticipation. After the previous day at the office, he knew that the memories of the twins' visit would stay with him forever, but he also sensed that this day could be even more special. The girls were already awake, buzzing with excitement and plotting what they would do next. They had been thinking all night about how they could continue to show their love and appreciation, and now they were ready to bring another surprise that would leave a lasting impact. After breakfast, they presented their idea to him with wide, sparkling eyes. They wanted to create a small event at home to celebrate their time at the office and to honor the hard work their father did every day. The father listened, a mixture of awe and pride swelling in his chest. He agreed, feeling that this was not just a playful gesture but a beautiful way for the family to bond and for the girls to learn about appreciation and thoughtfulness. The girls set to work immediately. They decorated the living room with handmade banners, colorful papers, and little signs that read encouraging messages like "Best Dad Ever" and "Our CEO." They even made tiny name tags for each of the stuffed animals and created a small stage for a presentation. Their creativity was endless, and they worked together seamlessly, their laughter filling the apartment. Every detail mattered to them, from the placement of chairs to the alignment of the charts and awards. Meanwhile, the father prepared for the event in his own quiet way. He set up a small table with snacks and drinks, making sure everything was ready to support the girls' surprise. He admired their dedication and effort, knowing that this was not just a fun activity but a meaningful lesson in responsibility, creativity, and love. He could already feel the warmth of pride growing inside him as he watched their planning and teamwork. When the time came, the girls called him to the living room. He entered, and his eyes widened at the sight before him. The room had been transformed into a festive, playful office environment. The twins stood proudly behind their small desks, presenting charts, reports, and awards. The stuffed animals sat attentively, as if ready to receive instructions and participate in the event. The father could hardly believe how much thought and effort had gone into this surprise. The girls began their presentation, explaining the accomplishments of their team and the progress they had made. They shared stories of the office visit, the reactions of their dad's colleagues, and the small victories they had imagined for their stuffed animals. Their voices were confident, full of joy, and filled with the love they felt for their father. The father watched intently, applauding their efforts and asking questions, his heart swelling with pride and happiness. As the presentation continued, the CEO's visit from the office the previous day came into the conversation. The girls shared how the CEO had praised them and acknowledged their efforts, showing how thoughtful gestures could create a positive impact. The father listened, amazed by the depth of understanding the twins had demonstrated. It was more than play. It was a lesson in empathy, creativity, and the power of appreciation. The father decided to join the activity in a small way, participating in the award ceremony and sharing stories about his work. He laughed, asked questions, and encouraged the twins to explain their charts and plans in more detail. The room was filled with warmth, joy, and connection. The playful environment allowed them to bond in a way that was both fun and meaningful, reinforcing the importance of family, love, and support. After the event, the family spent time reflecting on the experience. They discussed the lessons learned, the fun moments, and the love they shared. The twins expressed how much they had enjoyed the activity and how proud they were to see their father's happiness. The father, in turn, expressed his pride and gratitude, acknowledging the thoughtfulness and creativity of his daughters. He realized that while work achievements were important, the lessons of love, family, and connection were far more valuable. As the day drew to a close, the father tucked the twins into bed. He held them close and whispered words of love and admiration. "You two have taught me so much," he said softly, "not just about creativity or fun, but about care, thoughtfulness, and love. I am so proud of both of you." The twins snuggled against him, feeling safe, loved, and proud of the joy they had created. In the quiet of the night, the father reflected on the journey of the past few days. The twin girls had taken their place in playful imitation, in creativity, and in thoughtfulness, and in doing so, they had shown him the true meaning of family connection. Their gestures had not only brought happiness to their father, but had also touched the hearts of those around them, from office colleagues to friends and neighbors. The experience highlighted the importance of small acts of love, empathy, and thoughtfulness. The father realized that these moments, filled with laughter, creativity, and genuine affection, would remain etched in his memory forever. The twin girls had given him a gift that could not be measured in achievements, promotions, or awards: the gift of connection, understanding, and love. Their actions reminded him that the most meaningful successes in life were not professional, but personal, rooted in family, care, and shared joy. As he finally settled into bed, the father felt a profound sense of peace and fulfillment. He knew that the bonds between him and his daughters had strengthened in ways that words could hardly describe. The playful office days, the creativity, the thoughtfulness, and the shared laughter had created a memory that would last a lifetime. The twin girls had not only taken their dad's place in imagination and play, but had also filled his heart with warmth, pride, and happiness that could never be replaced. He drifted off to sleep with a smile, knowing that his daughter's love and creativity had made a lasting impact, not just on him but on everyone who witnessed their thoughtful gestures. The memory of these days would serve as a reminder of the importance of family, the power of love, and the joy that comes from understanding and caring for each other. In the end, the heartwarming reaction of the father, the shared laughter, and the thoughtful creativity of the twin girls had created a story of love and connection that would be remembered forever. The next morning, the apartment was quiet, except for the soft hum of the early city streets outside. The father stirred awake, still carrying the warmth from the previous days in his heart. The twin girls, on the other hand, were already awake, bouncing out of bed with renewed excitement. They had enjoyed every moment of their playful office days and the heartwarming reactions of their dad and even his colleagues. But now, they felt it was time to plan something that would make a lasting impression on him, something that would show their love and appreciation in a way that was bigger and more thoughtful than before. After breakfast, they approached their dad with gleaming eyes, explaining their plan. They wanted to create a family celebration day at home, turning the apartment into a miniature office and award ceremony combined with family fun. They had spent hours the previous night brainstorming, drawing diagrams, making signs, and thinking of little surprises that would touch his heart. The father listened patiently, feeling a mix of pride, amusement, and anticipation. He knew that whatever they had planned, it would be filled with love, creativity, and thoughtfulness. The twins started by organizing the living room. They pulled out chairs, desks, and tables, arranging them to mimic a real office setup. They made charts and schedules, creating tasks that reflected not only their understanding of their dad's work, but also their own playful imagination. Each stuffed animal had a designated role, and they even created tiny nameplates for them. They practiced walking around the office like they had during their previous days, ready to act serious while still keeping their playful charm. Meanwhile, the father quietly observed, helping where necessary. He admired how carefully the girls planned everything, how their creativity flowed seamlessly with their sense of organization. He felt a deep sense of pride and affection. These moments were not just about play. They were about teaching values, encouraging responsibility, and nurturing love and empathy. He realized that the girls' gestures, though simple and playful, carried immense emotional significance. By mid-morning, the apartment was transformed. Charts lined the walls, desks were neatly arranged, and tiny certificates were ready for distribution. The twins had even prepared little presentations, summarizing their day-to-day office tasks, completed chores, and imaginary achievements of their stuffed animals. Everything was carefully thought out, and their excitement was palpable. They rehearsed their speeches, practiced handing out awards, and adjusted their tiny props with care, giggling quietly at their own little jokes. When the father finally called them to start the day, he was met with an elaborate display that made him pause in awe. The living room had become a playful yet organized office space, and the twins stood proudly behind their desks, holding charts and papers. Stuffed animals occupied the chairs like diligent employees, ready for the ceremony to begin. The father could hardly believe the effort, creativity, and thoughtfulness that had gone into this surprise. His heart swelled with pride and joy as he took in every detail. The girls began the ceremony with a lively introduction, explaining their roles and the tasks they had accomplished. They shared reports on their chores, imaginary project completions, and the tiny victories of their stuffed animals. The father listened intently, asking questions, laughing at funny parts, and applauding their effort. Every gesture, every smile, and every word reflected their love and admiration for him. He could see that they had taken lessons from their previous office experiences and applied them with creativity and thoughtfulness. After the presentations, the award ceremony began. Certificates were handed out to the stuffed animals, each presented with a bow or handshake from the twins. They created moments of humor, seriousness, and pride, making the event both entertaining and emotionally touching. The father participated alongside them, sharing stories of his work, giving praise, and asking thoughtful questions. The room was filled with warmth, laughter, and the sense of deep family connection. Following the awards, the twins led a small interactive session where they asked their dad to join in solving playful office challenges. They created puzzles, imaginary problem-solving scenarios, and creative exercises that involved teamwork, patience, and imagination. The father joined eagerly, appreciating how these playful exercises strengthened their bond while teaching valuable lessons. He realized that these moments were not only creating joyful memories, but also instilling confidence, empathy, and creativity in his daughters. As the afternoon progressed, they took time to reflect on the activities. The father asked them what they had learned, what they enjoyed the most, and how they felt about the entire experience. The twins shared openly, speaking about their love for him, their pride in helping in small ways, and the joy of working together as a team. The father listened, feeling an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. He understood that while he worked hard to provide for them, they were teaching him about care, thoughtfulness, and the importance of shared moments. The day ended with a cozy family gathering in the living room. They shared snacks, laughed about the funniest moments, and celebrated not only the playful office day, but also the love and connection they shared. The father reflected on how meaningful these small acts of creativity and thoughtfulness were. They were more valuable than any work achievement or recognition. The twin girls had created a world filled with love, understanding, and joy, teaching him that family moments could be just as significant as professional success. As bedtime approached, the father tucked the twins into bed. He held them close, whispering words of praise and affection. "You two have given me the most wonderful gift," he said softly. "Your love, creativity, and thoughtfulness mean more than anything in the world. I am so proud of you both." The girls snuggled against him, feeling safe, cherished, and proud of the happiness they had brought to their father's life. In the quiet of the night, The father reflected on the past days and the lessons he had learned from his daughters. Their playful office days, thoughtful gestures, and heartwarming surprises had shown him the depth of love, creativity, and connection that could exist within a family. He realized that these moments filled with laughter, imagination, and shared joy were far more meaningful than any work achievement. The twin girls had not only taken their dad's place in playful imitation, but had also left an enduring impact on his heart, a lasting memory of love, warmth, and family connection that would stay with him forever.